Welcome to DECODED Chats. I'm here with Mahdi Shadkamfarrokhi. I'm very proud of myself that I managed to get that out.
That's very good.
And he works with Allstarcode. And could you give us a quick introduction what Allstarcode is and what you're trying to solve?
Sure. So Allstarcode is a nonprofit based in New York City, and we're interested in this disparity that you see in the tech industry, namely the diversity in the demographic. Not so many minorities, so we're interested in giving opportunity to minorities, and we start off, if you think of the tech industry kind of like a pipeline, we're trying to start off near the beginning where students are still in school, namely high school. And we notice that there are a lot of these coding schools that exist, like there's Girls Who Code, there are some also set up for like other minorities, but for the most part there aren't many for boys and boys of minority background. And so that's what we're interested in. We're interested in getting minorities, Black and Latino boys into the tech industry by giving them the tools to succeed. That not only includes technical know-how, but also the ability to succeed in business. And we call these things soft skills. And that includes things like presentation, that includes things like making a contact, maintaining that contact, and in general, just being a good entrepreneur.
So how bad are the numbers in that? Like how much of the problem is that? I mean, it's you don't hear about that story much. You hear a lot about the like women in technology. You hear about like immigrants that are not from a certain country. But how bad are these numbers to solve that issue?
So and the exact numbers they exist in our book, but we also do foresee that women in technology is also an issue. We do recognize that, but other people are basically addressing it. So we're focusing on the boys. So the numbers are, you could look at it like year to year, the percentage of people in the tech industry, they're going up. But if you look at the minorities, they're pretty much staying steady. And that's an issue because that means that we're basically falling behind. Because if we're not going up, we're staying the same. Everyone else is going up. We're losing benefit in the arena that is tech industry.
So do you think there's a benefit with the soft skills is an interesting one, because I was getting very annoyed about how we make the totally focused programmer who only likes computers and thinks in algorithms. We make this the end goal to be like the successful entrepreneurs and the successful people. Like, oh, if you're not a total CS geek, then you will never succeed in the Silicon Valley. And that even blocks out people from privileged backgrounds. But do you think by concentrating on both sides, you actually help people to come in with a differentiator rather than like trying to compete on a pure technical level?
Yeah, and for the most part, the technical level isn't the end-all be-all, especially if you're a tech company and you get a bunch of resumes. A lot of people have more or less the same, like a very similar technical background. They're high, but what you need to have are people who can work as part of a team. That's way more important, or that's a huge determiner for getting into a position. Being able to maintain a contact and being able to present your ideas is a huge benefit, not just for the tech industry, by the way, but also just in life in general. I would say that if I had to assess our student success, if one of our students goes on to be a doctor or artist or what have you, and they're able to take our soft skills and make use of that, I consider that a success, even if they're not going into the tech industry.
You've been running the program for quite a while. Are there any good success stories, or well, there aren't any bad success stories? Yeah. But are there anything that you're really proud of already?
We have some of our students they're going our percentage of students that go to college is extremely high. It's something like over 80%. So that's a win in my book. But there's this one of our students. I'm so proud of this guy. His name is Gary Coltrane. He was one of our students. He went to college, and now he's applying to be a teacher. So he'll be teaching for us, and he was right there in the same seats that the boys were only a few years ago.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And it's I always keep telling people that you learn most by teaching, because you cannot fake it anymore. You have to know what you're saying rather than just delivering it.
Yeah.
So is that something that you found for yourself as well, that you actually kept your skills honed by teaching more?
I'll tell you, when I was first brought onto the job, I actually I was hired actually not that long ago. It was less than a year ago, and I was brought on because I had some experience making curriculum. And basically I would say like a month before the summer intensive started, they said, okay, we're going to hire you as a curriculum director. Here's our curriculum. It's broken. Fix it. And so I had to work pretty much on the fly to make things work, and I didn't have the best technical background. I didn't know how to work with like APIs. I was very unfamiliar with GitHub. I had pretty much no understanding of databases at all. There was this physical computing section with Arduinos. I had zero experience with that. So I actually had to learn it, and then I had to learn it well enough to teach it. So definitely, it definitely goes to show that on-the-job training, or learning it while you're doing it, is the best, and being a teacher helps you learn it as well.
What are the biggest barriers? Is it hardware access? Is it interest? Is it that technology documentation and technology information is not written in a style that is inclusive for other environments?
I think it's a multifaceted problem. I mean, you can look at, it's like, where does it start? You can say society is one thing that's keeping people down. If you go to the schools that our students are coming from, the mostly minority schools, they have a culture where technology is not a big part of everyday school, and you're even shunned when, for example, one of our students, they tell their friends, oh, I'm going to this Allstarcode thing, I'm learning how to code, and they get, let's just say that people aren't happy to hear that they're doing this nerdy thing, because it's kind of like a nerdy thing to learn how to code. So the environment that they're living in is not conducive to going into technology. Another barrier would be access, because a lot of the schools don't have lots of computers to give to the students, so they have very few access. A lot of our students are from low-income homes, so they literally cannot buy a computer to give to their son or daughter, to even get the experience or the exposure to technology as well. And one of the other things is, I feel it's not technical. I feel a lot of it isn't the technology, because if you give any of these students the things they need, they're fine. They excel. They love it. So I don't think it's ever. I really think it's like them being capable. They're very capable.
I always feel kind of lucky that when I started with computers and I went to work as a bricklayer to get my first money to afford my first computer as well, because my dad didn't have money for me and computers were just this like thing only for rich people. And computers were so rubbish that I had to do everything myself. I had to learn everything about them. Do you think that the nowadays with computing being so ubiquitous, and especially when it comes to mobile market, everything being driven in consumption, that it's harder to get kids to get excited about creating things with computers rather than just using them as a super sized TV?
So I feel like actually one of the things I'm always interested in is student engagement, and the best thing you can do with a student is to show them that they can make the thing that they're using every day. If they're on their phone, if you can show them how to make a mobile app, they're gonna run with it. Especially if it's like a game app that they love to play, that kind of thing. So I feel like as long as you give them this growth mindset, and it's really hard. I've been debating this for a while actually. How do you give someone a growth mindset? You can't really give it, but we can see it, and we can certainly try and get it out of our students and try to nourish it. If you can teach them how to research something that they don't know, if you can teach them how to not give up, and we have the 3 pillars at Allstarcode, the biggest one that resonates with programming is to celebrate failure, and to not, basically the idea is when you fail, you don't consider it a bad thing. It's not a negative thing to fail, because in programming you're going to be failing a lot. You're going to get error messages a lot of the time. And it's important not to let that stop you, that you keep going, and the idea of celebrating failure is to understand that even though you failed this one time, you're a step closer to the success that you're really going towards. So by keeping this mentality and making sure our students have this growth mentality, they can succeed at whatever they set as a goal.
Is there in terms of research, I'm always excited to see how much I could learn just by going online. You go to Khan Academy, you go to like Udacity, Udemy, whatever. There's like 10,000 of them.
Yeah.
Udemy, and I find it bizarre that like there seems to have been a rush in the last few years to get lots of startup in the education space to do like online code schools, and the quality control has not been as stringent. It seems to me like there's a lot of outdated materials that look shiny already out there. Is it overwhelming for students to say like, hey, find a course online, or is it just because we already know what we're looking for that we find the ones that make sense? Is there an overwhelming offer of online courses that actually might be damaging if you learn them as the first ones?
I'm not sure I would ever say a course is damaging. I'd be very worried to say that, but it certainly isn't as helpful as a physical person, like a teacher, that is there to help answer questions. I think one of the issues that we tend to see is that a lot of our students have some coding experience by having these online courses. But when they come into our program, how much of it is actually retained and how much are they really understanding? And what I mean by that is, do they really understand the programmatic process? Do they really understand what debugging is and how important it is? And the key concepts that they really need to know to get into tech industry are not, can you make a loop or can you program a function? That isn't nearly as important as understanding how to go about creating a well-made function and how to go about debugging a code that you're maybe unfamiliar with, but it belonged to someone else, but you still need to be able to access it and decode it.
There's a great talk that I promoted lately. There was just at Webstock in New Zealand and in Germany last year in Berlin about a lady who went into the fan groups of One Direction. And of course everybody was like, what the hell, and this is just silly. And then she showed just how much creative energy is getting into making fan fiction, making fan videos, making Tumblr websites and writing CSS to make them look differently, writing browser extensions because Tumblr didn't do the things that these fans wanted their One Direction website to do. So the whole message of her was like that if we want to be more inclusive, we should be less arrogant about the markets that we're not, or the online systems that we're not using, but actually celebrate what people are doing in there. And then she did a survey of these One Direction fans, after pretending to be one herself and much younger than she was, about if any of them are thinking about getting into IT because they already have some skills, and the answers were just devastating because everybody said, I'm not good enough, that's not for me, it sounds boring. So do you think there is a way to break that barrier between usage of the web and understanding? You said getting people to make something is very exciting.
Yes.
But what her message was like, we're not going to these markets, we're not going to these places where the people are, we just expect them to come to us.
Exactly.
How is your onboarding working? Do you go to places where you don't expect to be seen?
So in short answer, yes, you have to. I mean, there are students, they you have to remember, they're coming from a place where they don't think that they are capable. Because they live in this environment where they're being constantly told, oh, don't do coding, you're a nerd, or it's more important to play basketball or some other sport. That's very racist kind of, but it's still. But I'm speaking because that's the actual experience I've had with my students. That's what they're literally told, that you're not good enough, or if you even try for it, you're not doing anything that's actually going to mean anything.
Or you're trying to be above a station from us. You're trying to be better than the people that you grew up with, because it's only geeks that do that. Yeah,
and I didn't mention earlier, but this is also one of those other systemic problems. When a person who's living in this low-income area, when they finally succeed, when they finally attain a decent amount of money or a good status, what do? They leave. And all those resources that are beneficial are now out of the community instead of being in the community. And that's one of the lessons we are instilling in our students, is that you don't just take what you've learned and then go. You bring others up with you. And I think that's a very important lesson. But that's sort of a side point I was trying to make.
So how do you do you go to school groups? Do you go directly to the school level, or
so
youth centers, or
we go to? So we had actually some issues with youth centers. We can't post on their walls or anything, but we do try to go to youth centers. We do go to the community schools. We talk to principals. We talk to parents. Parents are a huge resource. And what's funny is that the parents, it may seem like the parents are forcing their kid to do something, but for the most part, the students are shy. We have a lot of shy students. They have interest, but they're too shy to like take the first step. That's, I guess, a part of just being some of these programmers. They're shy people.
But also self-assurance is not there because you're not coming from a background that is supportive for what you do. So it's harder to actually stand up and say like, "Hey, I'm doing this. This is pretty cool."
Yeah, and what I love is this thing that we do at the end of the summer intensive. We call it Demo Day, and it's basically our students free reign to do to make a project of whatever they want. And what I love about it is that you get to see this variety and this range of students taking the tools that we've taught them and just running wild with it. And you see projects, there's so many examples, I'm just gonna mention one. There was this one where the task, or the students made a web app where it integrated the, I forgot which API it was, I think it was the Twitter app. And basically, the task was to help clean up the community. If there's garbage that is in a bad spot or it's just a mess, then you take a picture with it. You take a picture with it, you send it on Twitter, and you go to this particular hashtag. And this sends a message to local resources, the sanitation, or the community centers to help clean up that particular spot because it has a location with the Twitter. So, and this is something that a student made that was actually used and helped his community help clean up the trash in his area.
It's interesting. In England, we had Fix My Street, where you took pictures of potholes in the street and they were geolocated, and then we shamed all the local governments to actually fix them because we made a worst list of which part of London had the most holes in the street.
That's ingenious.
So that was kind of an interesting hack day project as well. Do you think the emergence of open source and the availability of things like GitHub and hosting for free is helping that a lot more than before as well? Do you think the barrier of like entry has become much better now that we realize that open is not free, but actually it's open and participatory?
Yeah, I think that's, the whole other discussion about what is really free, but the fact that it's open source is a huge benefit to students who come from low-income backgrounds. If they don't have to worry about, do I have to give a credit card in order to access this? Do I need to pay, even if it's $1, do you need to pay any literal amount of money to get something that should be free? Is a huge benefit. So open source is absolutely where it's at in terms of getting our students where they need to go technically.
How could people help you with that? I mean, what do you think you need the most for this project? Is there a chance? I mean, you have a very because you're very professional about it. You have your curriculum, you have your length, and you have your whole course. It's not like a code school where people can come every weekend and different people try something out. Right. But is there a plan in the future to do something like that, to do like introductory days where people could volunteer with you to show stuff to people, for example? Yeah,
so what we have, so even though the curriculum, the summer intensive is the 6-week course that is pretty much defined already, and even within that, there is room for having participants. We have speakers come in, we have a mentorship program where people actually speak to our students one-on-one to help them professionally. But after our students go through our program, we have alumni services. We need to keep these students engaged because once they leave our program, where are they going back to? They're going back to the environment that's not nourishing their talent. And they're eager, now that they've had a taste of what they can do and what they're capable of, they're hungry for more. We get so many responses from students asking, what more can we do? And we can actually use a lot of help in this regard. We are looking to help our students get internships. We're looking to have our students learn more skills that we didn't teach during the summer intensive. For example, mobile app development. That's something that a lot of students have interest in that we are unfortunately not able to cover within 6 weeks. But there's a lot of opportunity for help, and we would love to get as much as we can.
Excellent. Well, thanks very much, and I hope this year's program runs well, and we're going to do more of that in the future.
Thank you.